Brilliant. Hi, Joni. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Hiya. Thanks for coming along today. So we're going to be talking today about tailoring the course. Steve, just for your knowledge as well, so Joni, apologies if I'm repeating myself here. We have been working with EDP as an organisation for a good few months now and delivered a variety of different safeguarding training. But specifically today, we're going to be talking about your team, Joni, the courses that you've booked specifically for your team, and then Steve as the facilitator as well of those courses going forward. So I know usually, and we've already had calls previously, Joni, about the mission and the vision of EDP and what you're aiming to achieve and things like that. So I've passed across to Steve all of the details about your website and things so he can go and have a look on that. But that kind of contextual stuff about the organisation has been done because obviously we've talked previously and we've delivered for you previously. So this call is specifically going to be about kind of the courses that we're looking at delivering for you in the near future. Is that okay?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Fantastic. Steve, do you want to just introduce yourself to Joni? Because this is going to be the first time. So you've had a few facilitators from us previously for the safeguarding training. Steve delivers the sessions that you've booked, and he's going to be looking at delivering all three of the sessions, which I've aimed for because I think based on Steve's connected knowledge and experience, which he'll explain in a moment, the customer groups and the courses that you've booked both really play to his strengths. And I thought now, because they're over a period of a few months, actually it'd be really useful for you to build a relationship with the facilitator so that the sessions can be tweaked as you need them and as he sees what the strengths and weaknesses of the team are as they move through the sessions as Fantastic. Well. So that's kind of the thought behind that connectivity.
Cool. Hi, Joni. So my background is in coaching, and I'm a qualified coach. I've been for about 8 years or so, and for the last 2 years, I've been working for Crisis, the homelessness charity, as a coach and as a progression coach. And part of my role as a progression coach with Crisis is working with Complex Lives in Doncaster. So that's the Complex Lives Alliance, where we work directly with the rough sleepers out there as well. So we work with the folks who've got complex needs on a daily basis, although it's a bit different now because lots of it's done through this two-dimensional world currently. But that's it. That's me in a background. My background, whilst I was a coach, I was training in coaching as well. So my background's in training. My current role is supporting those who are homeless or at risk of homelessness and those who have complex needs. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell, basically. I'm currently in my bedroom in Lincolnshire, which does the job.
Yeah, we are in a bit of a 2D world at the moment, aren't we? Certainly. But no, thanks for that, Steve, really useful. The two things that you missed, though, which I just think I want to tell Joni anyway, is one is that Steve is actually a professional actor. So he's
right.
Yeah.
When he came through the Training for Influence Train the Trainer program, what was really interesting was it was really quite clear from right at the beginning that Steve engages the audience, and it's interesting to see from a 2D perspective, but certainly your acting skills and your storytelling are a real feature of the training that you deliver, aren't they?
Yeah. Sorry, I was keeping that quiet. Yeah. To be fair, one of the things I really enjoy is having a conversation and building training up throughout the conversation. So we've got a framework, and we'll create the points that you want to ensure we hit and so on and things like that. But training for me, the best type of training is where it's 2-way or 23-way or whatever, and we facilitate that conversation.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. Yes, and been delivering training now. Well, I don't want to put any age on you, actually, Steve, but for many years.
Aye, many years will do. I'm good with that. I'm good with it.
Yeah, brilliant. So that's just a little bit about Steve, and just so that you can kind of see why we've connected him to you and this project. Joni, do you mind telling Steve a little bit about your team and what you do and where you're based and things?
Just going to grab some notes as well, Joni. So if I'm looking down, it's because I'm making sure I'm writing on my pad and not my bed.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so we provide, it's a substance misuse service for over 18s, and it's for people with complex needs as well. So we have all of Devon, so up until Torbay, not including Plymouth. So we have both urban and rural delivery. We have 3 main hubs, 3 main CQC registered hubs, and then another service. So we have North Devon, Mid and East, South and Exeter. So the methods of how we deliver to our service users are different depending on where people are. We have recently rolled out a new way of working, so it's to do with segmentation, and basically what we've done is put our service users into pathways. So we've got low-level alcohol and non-opiate crack users in one pathway, with the expected outcome that we work with them over up to 12 weeks. We then have higher-level alcohol, with the expected pathway to last no longer than 6 months. And then we have our opiate pathway, which is obviously the aim is to have ambition for our service users to look to exit them within 2 years. However, obviously we extend that as possible. And the reason that we've done that is because actually we were overfilling as a service. The targeting of the work wasn't there. So we would hold people maybe too long, push them back into their communities, or with the interventions that we were delivering weren't always great. So it might be that there was a lot of the well-being, lots of coffees, things like that, how somebody's week, and actually that doesn't stop somebody from using substances or help improve their life in any significant way. So yes, we recently brought in segmentation. It has actually already started to work where we're moving people through treatment, and our recovery workers can work with up to around 60 people at the moment.
Each recovery worker? Wow, okay.
Yeah, so the aim is they were initially called recovery navigators. Some people still refer to them as that, and what was supposed to happen was the navigator would sit in the middle and hold all of the information around. So we have a family lead. So if they needed family support, the family lead would come in. For prescribing support, the IP, the independent prescriber would come in, and they would link them to external agencies for other areas, but they would hold that care and support that included the recovery plan and the risk management. I think our training has been done quite internally before, and that has meant that it's at times led by somebody's opinion of something, and we need to really strengthen that so that there's very clear direction as to when somebody is having their training, how do we know that that training has embedded, and actually that there's objectives to be achieved at the end of training, so we know that something's been done. So if we're delivering support plan in training, actually it's around what the service is asking you to do. We need to make sure that they feel comfortable, they understand, they adhere to that.
And they know how it all connects together.
Basically, yeah.
And have you got objectives that you're wanting your team to achieve?
Yes, so we do, and it's to be in line with the CQC. I have got recovery plan examples, like the templates that I can send you, and we're just updating our risk assessment and management forms, which again I can send you because that will assist with the training. So part of
please
is getting our teams to skill based. So as you are aware, these types of jobs are not highly paid, and And actually substance misuse services seem to be the starting point for a lot of people coming into health and social care. So you don't necessarily always have people with the most rounded knowledge or rounded training. So we really need to equip people correctly to be able to achieve our outcomes.
Yeah, and there's definitely things, you know, if somebody feels comfortable having that relationship, that cup of coffee relationship, there's definitely things that can even be done within the conversation to help things move and help things progress effectively and efficiently. It's really easy to stagnate in that spot in it and have that regular, safe, not out comfort zone, having a cup of tea, how's it going? Brilliant. I've not had to deal with anything too scary.
Yeah. And the fact is, obviously, we do need to move people through treatment. We can't just sit and not have people exiting, because this is part of the reason why we started segmentation, is because that's what was happening. So we do need to exit people through treatment. And what we have got is, and I know from working in other drug services that there's a separation between the recording process and case management and actually the delivery of things, and that's being able to connect those two together as well, that actually doing a care plan or a risk management form is not separate to delivery of interventions. Interventions in themselves, and they will not be referred to as paperwork.
Right. So yeah. So we've got this imaginary fantasy thing that we've created here, and then in the real life, and they don't do this.
Mm.
And what you want is this joining of the two, so that you get this effective delivery.
Yeah, and I think because with everywhere we all have like specific around when you're supposed to do risk management. So a minimum of every 90 days, as an example, that is the minimum. But it's being able to connect people that actually risk management is the key part of our roles, and should be reviewed regularly, and not the forms or that process seen as something very different.
And actually, the fact that helping them recognise that they are doing it constantly, they're doing dynamic risk assessments every time they see the customer. So yeah. in some ways, it's also about reframing it, so they don't see it as additional work. They recognise what they're already doing and put that into the right context and recognise it within your process as well, because some of this won't be new to them. It will just need tweaking and connecting to your processes. And also, sometimes, like what you're talking about there with regards to kind of the I guess the more low level support work with regards to kind of sitting, having a conversation, building that relationship, etc. Actually, that is the fundamental beginnings of any type of relationship that's going to be successful. But then it has to have some smart targets within that. But you need to have those skills to build those relationships. But it isn't, what you're saying isn't a new story. There's lots of organisations that I've worked for and with, and I'm sure Steve as well, that have moved in the direction of recognising that there needs to just be more structure to the support, so that the clients get what they need, because actually they don't come to you to stay with you, they come to you to be supported and move through. And that might be, there might be periods within that support where their actions are showing different, that they don't want to be doing this, but that's why they're with you. That's where you then come alive and motivate and support them even more to be able to keep them moving through that journey. So you're not the first organisation to go, oh, actually we need to recognise and be a bit more outcome focused. But it is a balance between, particularly for the staff, what you don't want them to think is that actually this is all for monitoring for commissioners' sake, or monitoring for quality assurers' sake. There has to be that real tale of and recognition of the fact that yes, commissioners want this, and yes, quality assurers want this, but they want this because it's best for the service user, and that's what you want too. Do you know? So really, you're on the same page. There isn't this real gap between you want to do this and you're expected to do this. If you do this in the right way, you're ticking all of the boxes, and your job will become much more valued and there'll be some recognition of the success in it, because you yourself will also be able to identify when people are making small positive movements as well.
And that's right. And I think if the staff member, because if the foundation of that initial rapport building's there, then that's brilliant, and there's going to be so much more value in it for your team member as well. So because they're going to see the movement and the progression of their service users.
And that's definitely it. I think it's very hard for some of our team members. Some of them have been recruited through COVID, so their induction period, things like that, have been quite difficult for them. I know from a service that I worked in Sheffield, when it came to recovery planning, as an example, this is the thing that people really seem to struggle with, is the smart goals aspect of recovery planning, what that actually means to a service user. This is why I think this training will be massively helpful for people. And obviously the complex needs and substance misuse is about building skill and knowledge. And the risk management, again, is about actually what that means for a service user and keeping them safe. So that's why we picked these three things as initial ones that we wanted to work through.
So the three courses then, so there's one in November, which is complex needs and substance misuse. Then December is support planning, and then January is risk management and assessment. I'm going to come on to the courses in a sec, but let me just, because I'm kind of working through a bit of a process of whole organisation, which we've got that information, and then team, and then let me come on to the specific courses, just because I just want to make sure that I don't miss. How many people are in your team in its entirety, Joni?
So across all of Devon, there's about 150 people. However, from a recovery worker perspective, there's about 50. So obviously, initially, we're only getting 16 on. I'm trying to make sure that we can hold this on a routine basis.
So that it keeps rolling and repeating, and then everybody has the exact same knowledge, don't they? So yeah, that's fantastic. So 16 people on the next course, the one after and the one after. Now, will it be, because this is quite important with the planning, will it be the same 16 people on each course? Because you have, because of the way that your mind's thinking and because of the reasons why you've booked the training, your team members are going to go on a little bit of a training journey. So the differences are, you can either have this as a bit of a pilot and have the same team members go through each three courses, and then assess and recognise the benefits to that, and then tweak that for moving forward, and know that that is kind of their core induction element that they all need to do to be at a certain level, or and in that way potentially the impact longer term is going to be bigger and more measurable for you. Or you can put them on where anybody just books onto any. But the reason why we need to know that is because what Steve will do is he will build those relationships, and course upon course, he will say to people, I'm going to be seeing you 3 times. I'm going to be taking you through this, which connects to this, which connects to this. And by the end of that, this is where we're going to have you at. And that's a much more, for you, there'll be much stronger outcomes if it's done that way. Now,
personal.
That's a really good point, actually. So what we've done initially is I'd asked the team leaders to put people on based on what their outcomes are at the moment. So based on any training abilities, skills, things that keep coming up, things that keep getting missed. So that's why I asked, but actually that thing of following through with the same 16 people does seem more valuable.
You would get a lot. So it wouldn't necessarily make any difference from us with prep or delivery, but from an outcome perspective, you would get a lot more out of that from an organisation.
No, that makes sense. So I don't think we filled up the spaces yet. I've put it out. I can have a look at that, because actually I do like the idea of the same 16 people following through.
And you can have your team leaders choosing a couple of people from each of their teams, because then what they can do is they can then feed back how useful it was, which bits worked better than others, and then we can look at tweaking it so that actually then that programme is as strong as it possibly can be for everybody on the next forward.
No, I like that idea. No, that sounds great.
I'll leave that one with you to work out with your team leaders and with Nora as well, and then we'll come back to that one. So that's great with regards to organisation. I now know why you've booked. That was going to be my next question. Know a little bit about the teams there. Once we know what you're doing with regards to the who's going on the course, if you do decide to have the same 16 people, it'll be worth then having a conversation about those 16 people right near the first course. So it doesn't have to be a long conversation, and it doesn't need to be now, but it does need to be right, like close to the first course, just about the dynamics, because really useful then is if you say, and these are really strong characters, or these are weaker characters, or these need this type of support, or here's some skill knowledge gaps and things like that. You can do that closer to the time.
Would it be possible for someone for us before we leave today to agree that time so it's booked in, and then we can talk about that, so I just know that it's in my diary and I can prepare for that.
Yeah. And that even if it is a mixture of people on each course, you still have that option. But what we say then is to just email us when you send the delegate list. You'd then just email us and say that these are the delegates here. I've got X, Y, and Z concerns or not.
Okay. Oh, you've just gone silent.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to click mute then. Yeah, so that's only a subtle difference there with regards to whether you just want a bit of a 10-minute conversation, or whether you just want to say, these are the delegates, this is what to look out for, if that makes sense.
Okay, brilliant.
Brilliant. And then, so moving on to the courses then, having a look at, so they each connect together really, really well. The first one that we're talking about, and I was explaining to Steve that actually, because it's multiple courses, you won't need to tailor them all. You won't need a call like this in detail for each of them, because we'll know about, well, we know now about the roles, we know now about your reason for the training, and we know now about your objectives with regards to the pathway. So you won't need to do this again for every one of the courses. But what might be needed in the future, depending on as we move through it, is just specifics about that course. So the first one we're going to focus on now is going to be the complex needs and substance misuse. But then it'll be the same when you get to the support planning one, for instance. It'll be really important then for Steve to have the support plans that you use, for instance.
Yeah.
So it'll be things like that. But I'll go to the complex needs one. We'll have a look at that, and then if time allows, and depending on how we feel, we can kind of speak to the others certainly, and just see if there's anything specific. But if not, then we'll do that at a separate point.
Okay.
Tell me then, from a complex needs and substance misuse, I'm just going to share my screen and just bring up the objectives for this. So this one, so the complex needs one has elements in it that relate specifically to being in a hostel, being homeless, or being in shared accommodation. So my first question for you was about actually whether that element's relevant for you or not.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And is that, do you have yourself, do you have accommodation services, or do you work with clients that are in accommodation?
No, we don't have accommodation services, but yeah, we do work with people who are, it especially impacts our Exeter team, but also our North Devon. So I would say it impacts the majority of our areas. So,
brilliant. Yeah. Great. So that's a really important distinction, because it will influence the level of detail that is involved in that. So that might move down a little bit. Today we might start with instead consider the way that your current life impacts on your drug use, and then the hostile implications will be discussed within that rather than a feature of it, if that makes sense. What about with regards to the level of knowledge that delegates will be coming to this course with? Because you're a specific substance misuse service. So what is really important for Steve is that he doesn't teach them to suck eggs, and talk to stuff they already know, if that makes sense. This isn't like a basic drug awareness session. It is very much about the complex needs and the impact that substances have and things.
So we've had multiple changes in staffing a long time. We've got some people who've been here for a long time, some people who haven't. I think what I would be looking for is people who haven't been here for a while initially for this first group, who do need some basic understanding around substances and the impacts of them. Yeah, I think aside from some videos and some stuff that we do via the needle exchange and team leaders, yeah, I do think more detail in that would be useful.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. That's really helpful, because that was one of the bits that I really wasn't sure about because of the service that you are. So that's really useful. What about, so this one specifically has been tailored obviously for an organisation that is a hostel-based organisation, and you'll see here that they've got quite a lot of focus on bloodborne viruses, transmission routes and risks, and then how to respond to discarded sharps. Now, from what you're saying there, it sounds like you're going to want more information around general substances and actually the impact of the substances. How much of this, the element with regards to kind of safer injecting, bloodborne viruses, discarded sharps, all of that type of stuff, how much of that do you want in there?
So the discarded sharps for us is a process. So I don't think we would necessarily need anything there what to do if that's just the process that we have. The BBV stuff, I've already put in with our nurses to focus on the stuff around BBV, so that's fine. The safer injecting and overdose risk, I do think would also be useful. Harm minimisation is a large, and we make an assumption that everybody knows harm minimisation. However, I would like a little bit, not as much as the substantive information, but a little bit around the safe injecting and overdose risks.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. That absolutely makes sense. And so the core elements are going to be about actually the different substances, introducing them to the different substances, but also introducing them to the different elements with regards to complex needs, and then how they interact together, and how that potentially is displayed differently from different people with regards to challenging behaviour, how that can present differently. And actually, to be fair, from talking to Steve and Steve's experiencing, what your experience is, what you're asking for there, fits 100% comfortably with actually his experience and understanding because of his role. We've got a specialist worker that kind of would have added in the bloodborne stuff around the safer injecting and things, because I think that you have knowledge on that, don't you, Steve? But from a real detailed medical perspective, that's not the strong point. So that's why I wanted to check in with that. So that's absolutely perfect from that perspective. I'll come back in a second and ask for some examples, but I just want to stop for a minute and just see if there's anything on the back of what we've just talked about that Steve wants any more information about.
I'm interested. What are the problem drugs that you deal with regularly down there? Because so I work in South Yorkshire, so spice is a big issue up here.
Yeah, spice is becoming an issue here as well. And when I've looked at outcomes, actually our opiate outcomes are quite good. Our crack outcomes, though, aren't great.
Good what?
Our crack
crack.
Yeah, they're not as great. So I do think maybe a bit more about crack, separate to powder cocaine, because actually our powder cocaine outcomes aren't too bad.
Sorry, when you say outcomes, What do you mean when you say outcomes?
From a perspective of moving people through treatment and reductions in their use, we have less in crack than we do with anything else.
Brilliant.
And
Okay.
spice is new to us down here.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Right.
It is really interesting. Do you know, if you just look around the country, it's really interesting to see the trends and actually the direction that it goes in, because you find, like in South Yorkshire, if you judge that against certain boroughs of London, for instance, South Yorkshire is way behind with regards to the spice intake. But then if you're then talking about looking at down in Devon and things, and you're saying it's only just hitting you, well, in North Yorkshire, when I moved out of working in young people's hostels 8 years ago now, that's when spice hit there. Do you know? So it's really interesting. Just
there was a moment a couple of years ago. It seemed to hit Bristol predominantly, and then it seemed to calm down. And then I lived in Sheffield, and it was really bad in Sheffield about a year and a half ago, and they did a massive piece of work around it. But it seems to have come quite high now in Devon through the prison population.
Yeah. So that's a really important question. Thanks for that, Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
So from that, so we've kind of covered there the opiates, spice, crack cocaine. Anything else?
So just from a cannabis perspective, one of the things that I've picked up is people's personal opinion about cannabis.
Yeah.
Does influence their ability to tackle issues around cannabis use. So, you know, people don't have poor opinions of cannabis use. However, if it is impacting somebody's life or their criminal behaviour, then it's actually not good, is it? So the cannabis, I think a little bit more around that. We have a good programme for cannabis, but I would like something central so that it helps to form people's understanding of that it is a problem substance, even if there's a practitioner does not feel it is.
So that's really interesting. And actually what you're talking about there is very much about that professional response versus your personal opinion. And actually I'm just thinking, as you're saying that, potentially we can look at that being one of the real discursive activities. Because there's some brilliant one. We've got a course that's called Drugs and Premises, and it's for people who they have hostels or whatever, and it's about the legalities of drugs on premises. And one of the things that often comes up there is about cannabis, and actually the implications of that. And it is about actually your professional response can be different to your personal opinion, and this is why. And actually this is why, in context of what that service user needs to be able to successfully move forward with their life, there's no denying there's probably hundreds and hundreds of people that are taking any range of drugs from cannabis through to heroin that are living and operating perfectly successful lives. You know, we're not there to make judgment on any of them, but we are there to recognise that if somebody's working with you and that's having a negative outcome on their life, that's different.
Definitely. The gabapentin and pregabalin seems to be quite high down here. I'm not quite sure what's happened with why that's happened, but we do seem to have, that seems to be quite high. Not so much amphetamines or anything like that, but GABAs seem to be pretty high.
Right, okay.
There is a GABA slide there, isn't there?
I did see one. I thought
I did see one, but I can't find it. It's there somewhere. We'll go through, Steve will have this and then take all of the elements out that you don't want and then add in the elements that that match what you're saying here.
Okay, brilliant.
Perfect. So anything else with regards to anything else that you want specifically included?
No, I think that should cover it for the bigger things that we are experiencing here.
Okay, fantastic. And then from a complex needs perspective, give us some examples of what type of challenging behaviour and complex needs you're seeing as connected to the substance misuse.
So I suppose the complex mental health is And I imagine this is like this across all areas. We've got quite high waiting lists into support for mental health. So we're holding people who have what we would class as quite severe, because our mental health treatment service are currently mainly working with people with bipolar disorders, their priority, and existing people, and actually depression and anxiety low level we can kind of cope with, we can manage, we've got different systems, but yeah, people's general mental health and well-being is not great. Homelessness is quite high, and abilities to hold on to housing once they get it, or to get them into housing, that's one of the needs that we have. And
is that because of drug use, or is that just multiple factors?
Drug use mainly, but also one of the issues that we expect because of COVID. So people's behaviour is riskier. They could potentially have COVID, however, they are having to go out and score.
Right.
So that's a difficult thing. Actually, being able to keep themselves and the community safe has proven difficult.
Is this in a hostel environment, or in general?
In general, so we will put people the Devon or Exeter, as an example, are housing people if they have symptoms. They're temporarily housing people in hotels. However, if you need to score, you need to score, basically. So
that's an issue UK wide.
Yeah. So I suppose other complex needs, things around like domestic abuse. And general vulnerabilities around the fact that we've got an ageing population.
Yeah.
So our average age of opiate users death is something like 48.
Oh. Right.
And alcohol, it's about 52. Well, that's based on an audit that I did about a year ago, just within our service users and those who had died. I looked at averages of that and ageing population. So the physical health needs and the importance of the physical health needs of this population.
Yeah. Perfect, that's great. And I'm just thinking, as you're just talking there, there's another course, Steve, that we've got that talks to those problems specifically as well. So we'll pull some of what I'm going to do is we're going to drop the bloodborne viruses, infectious diseases, all of those type of bits. It will still be talked to, so Steve will still talk to it as we're going through, but there won't be that intense
dig into it.
And then what I'll do is I'll pull through from one of our other courses those specific elements with regards to how the complex needs are displaying themselves, and then Steve will then connect those both together. From that, because quite often what we see is that actually it is interconnected with multiple disadvantages, and it's about recognizing that bigger picture as well. And as the recovery navigator, actually they're only one piece of that jigsaw as well. So it's also about looking wider than that and looking at who else can be involved and is involved to be able to support that journey as well. Because if they're supporting 60 people, they can't be doing everything for everybody every day. Do you know, it really does need to be support, build a relationship, smart targets, signpost, multi-agency working, doesn't it? It can't be, I'm going to own you and kind of do everything for you. It just won't.
What's the
sorry, go on.
Sorry, what's the so we've got 16 people in here. How often, what opportunities do they get to information share amongst each other as well?
So we have a weekly, every area has a MD, a multidisciplinary team meeting once a week. We've just, as of beginning of November, we're introducing clinical supervision. So they'd have that once every 8 weeks, and then they obviously have their supervisions. So yeah, they have, obviously it's more difficult now with COVID in regards to day-to-day interactions with each other, but they do have a whole team meeting every week.
Is that so? But is that across the whole area, or is that their little kind of?
In their locality, so there's one for Exeter, one for North, one for Mid and East, and one for South.
So there is an opportunity then within this training that the 16 cohort can information share amongst themselves, that because they might be unpicking gems that they don't know about, or agencies they've not tapped up and things like that?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's good. That's really good that you're offering clinical supervision. I think that's incredibly important for people who work in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. And so with regards to,
Sorry, I just need to let my cat out of the room.
That's okay. So with regards to the substances, we know what we're doing. With regards to complex needs, we know what we're doing. We've got some idea of some of the things that they struggle with. What would be really useful would be a potential couple of case studies or examples of actual daily work that they do. So what are the staff members on the ground actually doing each day? You know, a real tangible kind of examples of the type of people that they're working with, and how that work is undertaken as well.
Okay. So I suppose what I could look to do is get some examples from some of the MDTs that have taken place, to see why someone brought something to an MDT, or I'll speak to the team to see kind of what questions they're being asked around in supervisions to bring, and I can pass that on to you as.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. And all that will do, that will just frame when Steve's delivering, that will frame the delivery, and then when we're setting the activities, they might be used really specifically within the activities as well. It also helps as facilitators to have a bank of this knowledge. So if particularly at the beginning of the course, people are a bit quiet or not wanting to kind of share, particularly if they're across teams, one of the people come in might not want to at the beginning of the course share something they're struggling with, worrying that somebody in a different team is going to judge them for it. If we then bring that from a neutral perspective, that issue, then actually it can be unpicked really nicely, and then they can all be moved past it together. So we tend to try and have some of this information, so that although Steve will of course be talking from an expert perspective with regards to his own experience, the team really need to feel that he's talking to them and their problems within this framework. So that would be really useful as well.
No problem.
And if you have any policies connected to this subject in particular, so if you have a substance misuse policy, if you have kind of your how to respond to complex needs or challenging behaviour type stuff, if you have any of that, if you can send that through. For the support planning and the risk management one, my gut is telling me that we should wait until we've done this one on the 19th, because I think what Steve will get there, particularly if you do decide to connect the cohort together, what Steve will get there is a real feeling for what's missing, and what needs to then be part of that support planning, and whether that support planning bit needs to focus on those SMART targets and there's those motivational interview techniques, or whether it needs to focus on changing their mindset on the way that they're approaching it. And also he could then potentially pull through from the complex needs and substance misuse some of the examples, and literally as a real operational activity, do a support plan for some of the examples they out within the complex needs one. So that way they can really see kind of how it all connects together. So by the time we get to the support planning one, what would be really important is that any documents that you've got, any support plans that you've got, any this is how you do a support plan process that you've got, or anything like that, that we're sent, so that for the activities they complete your paperwork, and they do it literally exactly as they would do next week when they're doing it properly, if that makes sense.
That sounds great.
And that actually, it sounds really good, because that will then feed into risk management as well, so we can start plucking these real life examples out from session 1 all the way through to session 3. That would be really good if that can happen.
You can see that there will be quite a significant change in the staff members, can't you, Steve? I can see that you're getting excited at the possibility.
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So that for the time being, that's all we need. We need to go away now, myself and Steve, and just play around with the presentation and make sure that it's got the information in that you're wanting. And then from that, we'll send that across to you just to have kind of a look over. At the same time, what we need from you is some more information with regards to with regards specifically to the activity undertaken by the people attending, and any kind of concerns, issues that you've got within it, and then any connected policies. So that case study type thing, and then those connected policies. If we can both, so this training course is booked for the 19th, isn't it? So if we can look to have to you by the end of this month a draft of the presentation, but without the detailed tailoring that you're going to provide the case studies for, and if you can look to have to us the information, the case study type information by the end of the month, that'd be great. We'll do a swap.
Just so you know, I'm only in for the rest of this week, and then I'm off until the 3rd of November. If I can do it by the end of that week, that would be amazing.
To be fair, Jodie, I was just about to say, I'm about to move house in the next fortnight.
So shall we say for the 6th of November?
That sounds
right.
doable.
Is that better? Yeah, because I need time to get all of the information, speak to the team leaders, get the right people on the course. So yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah, maybe get them all right. If you can get them deciding who they want on the course, then maybe ask them to email you an example of somebody, a work that they do, activity they undertake, and somebody that they work, or an atypical customer that they work with. If each of them did that, you just need to forward it on. Then when you come back, hopefully that'll all be in your inbox.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see how it goes.
Look at the faith in her face.
Yeah, even if 50% of them are, that'll be enough information for us. So hopefully then to try and lessen your workload rather than increase it. And just, I guess, to reassure you that this will be, once we've done this will then inform the next 2 courses. And then if we continue and roll this out, it will inform all of them. So although there is a little bit of work up front, because this isn't just a one-off course, it is more specific, and you want to have that longer term impact. I think it's worth just putting that little bit of extra effort in at the beginning of it. But then you'll be pleased, because then all your courses will just be fantastic and deliver what you need, and you won't need to think about them.
Yeah.
That's what we're aiming for. No pressure or anything. Fantastic. Have you got any logistical questions you want to ask us, or anything specific? No,
just in regards to referencing and the terms that we use. So it's just we call them service users. Brilliant. So it's just so that you're aware of that.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's the only thing, though.
And what was tell me the navigator term again?
Yeah, they're supposed to be recovery workers.
Recovery workers.
Yeah, but they have previously been called recovery navigators.
Do you want them to be referred to as recovery workers?
I mean, I prefer for them to be called practitioner, just in general, a practitioner, because I do think that elevates people and makes them feel better. It's a nice word, isn't it?
We'll go practitioner. Yeah. That's fine.
And you'll know from our other training, Joni, that we always start off with what is your why, your mission and vision, and, really trying to connect the delegate back to the work they're doing on the ground and the difference that they're making. And I think practitioner goes in line with that really well. So let's build them back up. That's what we're trying to do on these courses, isn't it?
Yeah, I want them to feel really good about this and to know that this is important and they're important.
Yeah, and that you're investing in them, because that's what you're doing. You're really investing in your team. So that's quite, once they've come through, hopefully if it does work out that it's the same people, we'll do a measure of that at the beginning and measure of that at the end, so that you can then also see the difference that it's made from a tangible perspective, rather than just a basic, what did you get from this course? You'll be able to see that over a period of 3 months.
Right.
Quite a significant difference.
Okay, fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, that's all we need. Steve, any final questions?
No, I'm good with that. That's not at the minute. I need to just digest that and see what comes out.
Yeah, brilliant. I appreciate it's a little bit more complicated, this call, because we're kind of talking not just about a course, we're talking about kind of a package and tailored the course within it. But we've got everything I think we need to be able to.
It sounds there's plenty to chew on there and plenty to share out with the team, with your practitioners.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joni. We will be in touch,
thank you.
by the 6th of November. We will be in touch.
Fantastic.
All right,
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, Joni. Thanks very much.